Silo returns this week with episode 5 of season 2. Following Judge Meadows' death, we saw the Silo increasingly divided. Billings and Dr. Nichols are solidifying their stance against the Silo's leadership, while Sims begins to question Bernard and the validity of his actions. Meanwhile, Knox and Shirley are looking for a way back to mechanical, and the population of Silo 18 is being manipulated like an instrument. Hostility now runs deep, permeating every level of the Silo, including Silo 7. We also saw Jules beginning to doubt Solo, discovering that he isn't who he claimed to be, a revelation that completely changes the dynamics. With all that said, let's dive into the episode and break down everything it revealed. Here's the explanation for the ending of Silo Season 2, Episode 5. Just a heads up, this video will contain spoilers, Solo's hidden identity, and new Silo revelations. In Silo 17, the search for Juliet's new suit is in full swing. In the previous episode, she managed to retrieve a firefighter suit by venturing deeper into the flooded silo. However, she still needs a helmet since hers was damaged when she arrived. Solo tells her that it was judicial raiders who destroyed the groundwater pump on floor 144, leading to the flooding. But in episode 1, the rebel sheriff is informed by engineering that the generator would flood within 15 minutes. This raises two possibilities. Either the sheriff was simply being told about the flooding Judicial caused, or Solo was lying, and it wasn't Judicial who flooded the generator. After all, why would Judicial and those at the top want to destroy the generator when they need it to stay operational? This episode, Juliet confronts Solo about his lies. He reveals his real name is Cole Mears, but when Juliet finds a personnel list during her search for a new helmet, the name doesn't match Solo. Later, she discovers a photograph of the real Solo with his girlfriend Tiny. When Juliet confronts him, Solo becomes unhinged, insisting he is Solo. The question arises, how mentally unstable is he, and why did he take on someone else's identity? It also makes one wonder if the two dead bodies outside the vault could belong to Solo and Tiny. Interestingly, we saw the real Cole Mears, or Solo, back in episode 1. He's the man with a facial birthmark standing next to Russell, the head of IT. Did the real Solo die in the rebel attack? Did this Solo do something to him? It's evident Solo is hiding something, including what happened to his eye. Hopefully, a future episode will provide a backstory to answer these lingering questions. Meanwhile, Juliet's arm appears severely infected, and the silo continues to flood. Solo estimates they have about 10 months before the water reaches them, unless the ground pump on floor 30 is repaired. He wants Juliet to focus on fixing it rather than her suit. But if she refuses, will he lose control again? By the end of the episode, Juliet discovers an apartment containing the missing helmet. If this apartment belongs to Tiny and Solo, it suggests one or both were involved with the rebels. Recall the memorandum addressed to all staff about the helmet being borrowed. Why would someone take it if not to tamper with the screen, analyze it, or delay someone from going outside to clean? If the real Solo was secretly working with the rebels, while also being the head of IT's shadow operations, it adds another layer of intrigue to the story. Bernard's grip on power, control, and the level of influence he desires in the silo is steadily weakening. He's losing support among the civilian population, his own team, and even those he once trusted. Bernard blocked the impeachment plan Sims had proposed for Meadows because it would have completely backfired on what he aimed to achieve with her death. Judge Meadows' death has, ironically, united the silo against her alleged killers, bringing them together as one. In contrast, an impeachment protest would have divided the silo into factions, supporters and opponents of Judge Meadows. If Bernard were to catch Knox and Shirley, sending them out to clean and forcing the entire silo to witness their deaths, it could serve as a reset for him. It would extinguish the hope and belief that stepping outside and surviving is possible. This act would reduce the hostility and tension within the silo, ultimately restoring order and giving Bernard back the control he once held so firmly. If you've read the books, you'll know that a successful rebellion can have severe consequences, and it's likely Bernard is aware of these outcomes. This awareness could explain why he is so determined to prevent a rebellion. However, as he loses the trust and support of those closest to him, the rebellion may begin to gain momentum. One notable action Bernard took in this episode was allowing Lucas Kyle to leave the mine so he could repair the hard drive Bernard had destroyed. When Kyle fixed parts of it, we saw a letter from Salvatore Quinn, written in code. It appeared to be a love letter. We know Judge Meadows had deciphered the code, and I believe the contents of the letter are what she revealed to Lucas Kyle before her death. The letter likely included information about the stars, the sun, the planet, and the outside world. It seems Judge Meadows didn't want to die without sharing this knowledge with someone, which is why she confided in Kyle. Paul Billings continues his search for Patrick Kennedy in this episode, the man responsible for firebombing the Raider station to provoke a riot. Sims had promised Patrick he would erase his memories in exchange for carrying out the bombing, as Patrick wanted to forget the pain of losing his wife. It's only when Paul notices Patrick's niece taking extra food from the cafeteria that he questions her to discover Patrick's location. When Paul finds Patrick, he isn't exactly thrilled to see him. Given that Paul is perceived as aligned with Judicial, he has to earn Patrick's trust to uncover what he knows. Paul accomplishes this by showing him the page he tore from the Adventures in Georgia book found in Juliet's apartment during season 1. Possessing this page could land Paul in significant trouble if discovered, but it's enough of a gesture to convince Patrick to share his knowledge, on the condition that Paul gets him a doctor. It raises the question of whether any doctors sympathetic to the cause might still be around. With the capture of Knox and Shirley falling on Paul at the episode's end, it seems increasingly likely that Paul may align with the rebels. It's becoming evident that Bernard and IT are not as trustworthy as they claim to be. After being framed for Judge Meadows' murder, Knox, Shirley, Martha, and Carla attempt to escape to the Down Deep. Carla knows a man named Calvin, who oversees the porters, and he agrees to help them slip away in grain bins in exchange for Juliet's multi-tool, 24 refrigerator coils, and some alcohol. However, Calvin can't resist a better offer from Judicial, 1,000 credits. Carla and Martha separate from Knox and Shirley, as they don't have bounties on their heads. Meanwhile, an unexpected ally prevents Knox and Shirley from being captured and executed on the spot. Camille, Sims's wife, dons her old Raider outfit and secretly takes the fugitives to Asa's house. Asa, a plumber with a shady past, is blackmailed by Camille into letting them stay. Camille's knowledge of Asa's questionable activities, likely from her time as a Raider, gives her leverage. She essentially tells him to ignore the bounty on Knox and Shirley, and in return, she'll overlook whatever illegal dealings he's involved in. Camille's motivations remain unclear, but it seems she might be orchestrating Sims's rise up the silo's hierarchy, especially now that he's been demoted. It's possible she's setting the stage for Bernard to fail so Sims can step in and take his place. Meanwhile, Knox and Shirley leave their hideout, tie up Calvin, and steal his illegal hydraulic cable. Using the cable, they rappel down the side of the silo, bypassing the barricade Judicial has established on the 130th floor. This barricade will eventually collapse as residents from both the top and bottom of the silo clash, further fueling the rebellion that aims to overthrow the silo's leadership entirely. I thought this was a solid episode overall. It marked the halfway point of the season, and it definitely felt like the kind of episode you'd expect at this stage. We got several key revelations and saw clear divisions forming within Silo 18. Jules and Solo's independent storyline continues to be compelling, though I wish we had more information about Solo. Hopefully the next episode will provide more development for his character. As for the performances, the cast consistently delivers at a high level. Even when newer characters are brought into focus, such as Billings' wife, Kathleen, they hold their own and showcase their talent. The authenticity of the characters' portrayals is a testament to the strength of the cast. I think Sims's storyline is about to get particularly intriguing. He's always been someone on the inside, but now he finds himself on the outside with no way to look back in. Exploring his powerlessness and internal conflict will be fascinating as the season progresses. I am starting to wonder, though, if Jules will return to Silo 18 this season at all. I'm hoping there will be some form of communication that confirms she's alive, as that could ignite the rebellion in full force. I also wish there was a bit more insight into the general sentiment of the people right now. It's unclear where the average Silo resident stands, whether they believe Jules survived or if they think she's dead. The general population is likely to be swayed by whatever narrative is pushed, so I hope this gets explored further. The big question at this point is whether this season is as strong as the first. It's hard to say definitively, but I'd probably argue that by this stage in season 1, I was enjoying it slightly more. That said, this season feels naturally slower due to the focus on two silos with very different stories. I don't mind the pacing, and I suspect the action will ramp up as we move toward the season's conclusion.